Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a really fascinating look at the internal dialogue that shapes, well, literally our entire reality. We're going to explore a pretty groundbreaking concept from author Steve Chandler about how we handle our own negative thoughts. Okay, let's dive into this, because what we're talking about today isn't just about trying to feel better. It's about fundamentally changing how your mind processes challenges. We are exploring the art of debating your inner pessimist. So I want you to start by taking a quick, honest inventory. When you're faced with a new challenge, a sudden problem, or just an unexpected change in your plans, where does your brain go first? Are you naturally optimistic, immediately looking for that silver lining? Or are you naturally pessimistic, kind of bracing for the absolute worst-case scenario? Take a second to really think about your default mindset. Because for a lot of us, if we're being honest, that initial gut reaction tends to lean a little dark. And hey, if you answered pessimistic to that last question, I want you to just take a deep breath. Negative thinking is something we all do. Literally every single one of us. Everyone broods, everyone worries, and we all entertain pessimistic thoughts. Having an inner pessimist doesn't mean you're broken. It just makes you entirely human. It's a completely normal part of the human experience. The goal here isn't to magically erase negative thoughts from your brain forever, because let's face it, that's impossible. Section 1. Meet your inner pessimist. It's not about the thoughts you have, but how you answer them. This right here requires a crucial paradigm shift. You have to stop judging yourself for having the negative thought in the first place, because even the most successful, highly motivated people in the world still have an inner pessimist whispering in their ear. Instead, you need to focus on your response. Chandler proposes a completely new way to look at optimism. An optimist is not someone who just blindly hopes for the best. An optimist is a person who has learned to become a good debater against their own pessimistic thoughts. Let that sink in. It's a learnable skill. It's an active, proactive debate. The real difference between someone who's primarily optimistic and someone who's primarily pessimistic is simply a matter of who wins the argument in their own head.
Section 2. The science of optimism. The evidence proving why optimism works.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that we're moving out of the realm of fluffy self-help theory and into hard facts. Because for a long time, optimism was treated as this vague, feel-good concept. But it turns out there is rigorous data backing up why debating that inner pessimist is the absolute most practical thing you can do for your success. For decades, the champion of positive thinking was Norman Vincent Peale, who wrote The Power of Positive Thinking. But his work was based primarily on faith, personal testimonials, and biblical passages. The problem with that? The people who needed his message the most, the hardcore skeptics and the deeply pessimistic, were exactly the kind of people who wouldn't just take things on faith. Enter Dr. Martin Seligman. Seligman authored a classic work called Learned Optimism, and he based his findings on years of statistics, rigorous science, and extensive data. Basically, Seligman finally proved scientifically what Peale had been saying all along. To put this into perspective, think about who Seligman actually studied to get this data. Professional athletes, amateur athletes, insurance salespeople, politicians running for office. Just think about those professions for a second. Salespeople face constant rejection. Politicians face highly public defeat. Athletes face intense physical and mental setbacks. Seligman studied these high-pressure, high-rejection groups, and his scientific studies proved conclusively that optimists dramatically outperformed pessimists. It wasn't even close, actually. The people who could successfully debate their inner pessimists simply achieved way more. So this brings us to the two most profound revelations from Seligman's work. Number 1, optimism is simply more effective than pessimism. Bottom line, it gets better results. And number 2, and this is the absolute game changer here, optimism can be learned. You are not stuck with the mindset you were born with. If you're naturally pessimistic, you can actively acquire the trait of optimism. It's literally a muscle you can build. Section 3. How to debate yourself. Putting your inner pessimist on the stand. Okay, so we've established that optimism works and that you can definitely learn it. Now we're going to walk through the actual framework. I want you to picture an inner courtroom in your mind. You are about to step up and become the lead defense attorney for your own potential. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, hold on, I'm not an attorney, I don't know how to debate, don't worry about it. You are already a great debater. We all are. Think about it. If someone walks into a room and passionately takes one side of an argument, what do we usually do? We instinctively take the other side and start making a case. We do it over dinner, we do it at work. Professional debate teams literally never know until the last second which side of an argument they're going to be defending, so they just learn to be prepared to passionately argue either side. You already possess the mental agility to argue a different perspective.
But before you can argue, you really have to ground yourself in reality. As Nathaniel Branden famously said, you can't leave a place you've never been. This is such a profound psychological reality. If you're going to change your pessimistic thinking, you have to first acknowledge that you are currently having a pessimistic thought. You can't just pretend everything is fine when it isn't. You have to locate yourself on the map before you can draw a route to a brand new destination.
So here is the exact two-step framework for your internal courtroom. Step 1. Recognize the thought as pessimistic. When you catch yourself brooding or worrying, just stop and label it. Say, okay, this is a pessimistic thought. Then immediately move to step 2. Build a case for the optimistic view. This is where you literally pretend you're the attorney whose sole job is to prove the pessimist in you wrong. Start arguing against your own first line of reasoning. Start actively building a case for what is actually possible. And here is a super vital tip for step 1. When you recognize that pessimistic thought, don't judge it as a lie or as morally wrong. Pessimistic thoughts aren't wrong or untrue, they are just less effective for your biocomputer. Think of your brain as a highly advanced computer. Pessimism is basically like running clunky, outdated software. It just slows the whole system down. To get the absolute most out of your biocomputer, you just have to acknowledge that pessimistic code simply isn't the most effective way to run your machine.
Let's move to section 4 and see how this builds. Opening doors to possibility. The final verdict.
Once you start practicing this two-step debate, labeling the ineffective software and actively arguing for the possibility of success, you fundamentally alter how you experience the world. Let's look at the spatial reality of these two mindsets. Pessimism is constrictive. It makes your world smaller. It quite literally shuts the door on possibility and kills your motivation to succeed. Optimism, on the other hand, is by nature expansive. When you successfully debate your inner pessimist, you start opening door after door to what's possible. You'll surprise yourself. You find solutions you couldn't even see when those doors were closed. If you want to open up your life, you have to choose the expansive path.
Which brings us to our final thought. I really want to leave you with this question burning in your mind. The next time your inner pessimist speaks, because trust me, it will, maybe even later today, how will you argue back? You've got the tools now. You have the data showing it absolutely works. The courtroom is in session and the verdict is entirely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, good luck with the debate.